Hi everyone and welcome to the GFS gallery. My name's George and today we're going to aquascape this beautiful Aquascaper 1200. If you're not sure about this tank, there's a complete playlist dedicated to this, including all the different aquascapes I've curated in there, all the way up to when I stripped it down the other day. So consider binge watching that if that's something that you're into. I'll leave a link up there right now. Exciting one for me this, I hope you're excited too. Please watch it to the end and I have a really important question for you. Let's get started. So in the previous video we talked a lot about the equipment we're using. You can check out that video right now up there. But just a quick reminder, we're going to be using Tropica Aquarium Soil, proven perform. I've been using this for years now in my own aquariums and clients' aquariums, grows plants really well, has loads of positive impact on the water chemistry and overall aquarium system. So I've got 2 bags here, we'll very likely be putting more in, but I'm using this as just an area, base layer if you like, and we can position our hardscape, our wooden rocks on top of that, and we'll do that in a minute. So let's just open it up and pour it in. So what some aquascapers do is actually create terraces made out of egg crate or DIY pieces of plastic, etc. And they can create different sort of shelves or levels, and then they can position their hardscape on that. I'm keeping it really simple. I'm just going to rely on the soil for the substrate. But it's just something else to bear in mind. I'm sure you can find some YouTube videos on that kind of styling of substrate system. For those that might remember the previous scape, I did have an open area of cosmetic gravel or sand, which looked really great. But today, in this scape, I really wanted to go heavily planted and plant as much of a soil as I can. So that's what I'm doing. Still not decided if we're going to go for an island composition, so something kind of central, or a triangular composition. So I'm sat just over here. So when I'm viewing the aquarium, it would make sense to have low plants down here and then going up to taller plants on the back left. Loads of you wanting to do an island scape. So we've got our first rock in there. This is called Frodo Stone. Most of you that have watched my channel for any length of time will have seen this stone already. Comes from my very good friend Adam Pascella in Poland, and it is one of my favourite hardscape materials to work with. I positioned it roughly around about 1/3 of the way along from the left. This is a nice aesthetic balance. So the reason we don't put the rock in the centre is usually it looks a bit too symmetrical. There'll be an even open space to the left and right, and then your eye tends not to settle down too much. So by offsetting it by around about 1/3, you can use the golden ratio as well, which is almost 1/3. This presents an ideal sense of balance usually. So by no means is that the stone we will use or the fixed position, but I think it's a good starting point. And I think it's worth talking about hardscape in more detail. For those that aren't familiar with my channel, I always talk about the importance of hardscape and how it's essential to have a strong hardscape from the start. This helps to create a high impact. You can enhance that impact with the use of plants. So by really focusing on a good selection of materials to start with, and then really paying attention to where those materials are positioned, we can create a very effective, strong and high impact hardscape, which is what I'm going to try and do for you right now. Okay, first 2 rocks are in. Looks like we might be going for an island, doesn't it, so far? Let's see how we go. I think it's worth going into more detail about choosing rocks. These are Frodo Stone. They're relatively rare in the UK. Just a few stores that pop into my mind that stock them. Scape Nature, Aquarium Gardens, Aqua Depot, and the new store that I'm doing a workshop tomorrow actually at the time of filming, Riverwood Aquatics. Apologies to any UK stores that I've missed out that do stock Frodo Stone. But when you're choosing rocks, don't just pick them at random. Pick each one up, have a look at it in terms of its character. It sounds a bit weird, does rock have character? Well yes, the gouges, the colour, the contrast in the colours. A lot of the time you'll find the same type of stone, for instance dragon stone, but it might have a different, one stone might have a different colour to the other, and you might not want to use this because it looks a little bit odd in the aquarium. We tend to only use the same kind of family of stones. They have the same kind of textures, the same kind of colours. So do bear this in mind. And for me personally, it's all about trying to pick out the best stone possible. Go into the store, rummage around and pick out that best rock. And even if you're not actually in the market for hardscape, for me personally, every time I go to an aquascaping store or a fish store which has aquascaping products, hardscape, I will often just buy that nicest piece and then I'll keep it in my collection, and then I've always got it to go to when I create a new aquascape for myself or a client. Bigger is better, generally speaking, with hardscape. Don't be afraid to go bold. Very often, beginner mistake is to start off with either too few pieces of hardscape, or those pieces aren't big enough to create a high enough impact. Okay, it's really taken shape now. I've added 3 pieces of driftwood. These are all from the previous scape. The front 2 from the 1200, and this one here is actually from the 600, which we'll be stripping down. We're going to be using a load of other plants from there in here. So I'm entering what we call now the flow state. So I'm getting into my real creative zone. I'm just going to get a load of wood, a load of rocks, and I'm just going to have a play. I'm not going to interrupt myself with the video, so just watch. Hopefully enjoy it. I'll put some music over, maybe a time lapse depending on how long I take. It's one of the most beautiful parts of the hobby for me, is just the creation of something that you really enjoy. So hopefully I can impart some of that passion over to you guys. I'm really happy with that. It came together really quickly, really quite easily. And I think it's a good example of, if you have really great materials to start with, it's not too difficult to create something impactful and I think quite beautiful. So what I'm going to do now is add a little bit more soil to the background. We're going to plant the back really heavily. I kind of want to avoid stem plants. I'm probably going to have anything up to 7 aquariums in here, so I want to keep them low maintenance. So very much relying on epiphyte, kind of slow growing plants. So might put some stem plants in there to start with. I'm rambling, do apologise. So I am going to put some more soil in, tidy up the foreground a bit, make some minor adjustments. A real top tip for you guys is take a high quality full-on front photograph. I'll overlay one now, which I took earlier. And then we can use this to analyse the hardscape in more detail at our own leisure. And we can make any adjustments from that, especially useful if you want to compete with an aquascape, because when you take the photo, most aquascaping contests are done via photograph, which is obviously 2-dimensional. So it's really useful to take this photo, analyse it like a judge would, using in the 2 dimensions, and then make adjustments from there. And also, really good idea just to live with the hardscape for a couple of days, go back to it, sit down in front of it, analyse it, just take it all in, almost come into like a meditative state, and just think, how can I make this look any better? And then make the adjustments as necessary. And it's obviously best to do this whilst the aquarium's dry. Now on that topic, I don't want the wood to dry out and float. So after I've done the soil and tidied up a bit, I am going to fill the aquarium with water just to keep the wood from drying out. I'm going to live with Escape for a day or so, make any adjustments as I feel necessary, have a little think about what planting I'm going to use for definite, sort out the plants from the 600, and then tomorrow or day after that, we can begin the planting process. So choosing a couple of 3-litre bags of the Tropica Aquarium Soil in the background. Need a little bit more around the front and a little bit more around the back. So I'll get another 9-litre bag, I think. So we've used 3 9-litre bags, so that's 27 litres. and 2 3-litre bags. So that gives us 33 litres of soil altogether, which is about 10% of the overall volume of the aquarium. Now what I like to do is use a paintbrush, keep it relatively shallow at the front. We're only going to be using a small carpeting plant species, probably Crypt Parva, because it is so slow growing and I do want something low maintenance. And then medium size crypts would make sense in the mid-ground. Epiphyte plants in between the stones and the wood interface, maybe a nice fern here, maybe a fern, Bucophalandra anubius up here, Bulbitis perhaps. It's a plant I don't often use. But let me know in the comments, guys, what would you like to see in here? Maybe some stem plants to start with, just to get the tank nice and balanced. It's a really good idea to use a fair amount of fast growing stem plants in the beginning of the Aquascape's life. Just helps to cycle the tank, helps to get it mature and able to deal with any potential algae issues. The more plants you have, the faster they're growing, and the healthier they are, the less algae you have, basically. So one top tip is to make it a little more natural, is to have the soil kind of going up against the stone upwards, so it looks like the stone's actually been exposed from eroded earth, if that makes sense. So obviously it's really going to transform once we're planted. It's going to transform once we're filled with water as well. So it's exciting. I'm really happy with it. I love it when the hardscape just comes together really nicely. I really like this kind of two distinct layers of stone here. We've got the front layer here, is 3 stones, and then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 stones behind it, so 7 stones altogether. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces of wood. So relatively simple, you know, not a lot of materials, but they are beautiful materials to work with. And it's great to be able to reuse, recycle products, materials, but make something look completely different. Hopefully that's a lesson for you guys. If you fancy rescaping your aquarium at home, you might be able to do something different, you know, create something really quite beautiful from existing materials you have. And we're applying that same technique with the plants as well. Okay, so I'm happy with the soil for now. I'm going to fill it up with water, just temporarily to stop the wood from drying out. I'm going to live with the scape for a couple of days at least, if I can manage to stop myself from planting it. It is the weekend at the time of filming, and it will be nice to have some family time, not necessarily aquascaping 24/7 as much as maybe I'd like to do that sometimes. Okay, let's fill it up with water. Okay guys, while that's filling up, I'll say cheerio. Hope you enjoyed that one. A real special video for me, this one. I really enjoyed doing the hardscape. I think it's a great way to show you guys that you can create completely new aquascapes using the same materials, just in a different way, thinking a bit differently. We've gone for full soil. It's more of an island concept aquascape, I would say, rather than triangular, but it does still have this element of triangleness, is that actually a word? With this piece of wood here dominating this kind of diagonal element. And yeah, I'm really happy with it. I'll have a little think, I'll sit in front of it for an hour or so and just think, you know, how can I make it look better? I'm going to probably print out the photo, the final photo, the 2-dimensional. We talked about why that's really important, especially if you want to enter into contests. Loads of room for planting, especially in the background where we're going to use tall crypts, maybe some stem plants to start with. We talked about why we might do that to help hopefully fight off any algae issues. We've got loads of epiphyte plants to reuse, hopefully they're healthy enough. Next video will be planting, how we prep the plants, come up with a planting plan, and I can't wait to share that with you over the next few days, hopefully. So hope you enjoyed that one, guys. Give me a thumbs up if you did. Let me know in the comments, what kind of plants would you like to see? Tempted to use a different carpeting species rather than Crypt Parva. It's so slow. I might use something a bit faster. Let me know what you think. Potentially Liliopsis. I don't often see this as a successful carpet in a nice big aquascape. I'm rambling again. I'm going to say cheerio. You take care. Keep on scaping. Cheerio again.